Good day and thank you so much for tuning in to DSTV channel 405. You are watching your favorite show, People's Imbizo, and I'm your moderator, Mahlobo. Today we're coming to you from Lapland, which is one of the biggest informal settlements in Gauteng that houses approximately 10,000 people. I'm joined by panelists. To my immediate left is Faisal Jaffa, who is the Eldorado Park Councillor from Ward 18. And next to him is Florentia Belvedere, candidate attorney in the Land and Housing Program at Lawyers for Human Rights. And next to her is Randall Roxon, who is from COSDAC, which is the Community Service Delivery Committee. A very good afternoon to you, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
Let me just start with you, Faisal. Just talk to us about what the Eldorado Park Council has actually done regarding the situation in Lapland.
Okay, what has happened here, what we see is a situation that started way back in 2005, whereby people moved in to take advantage of the economic opportunities with regards to recycling that is right next to the Goudkoppies landfill site. Since I became a councillor, we've had one engagement with the MMC of infrastructure, and ever since there have been battles, they've been having battles with court challenges and so forth. The city have always have a humane approach regarding the situation in terms of alternative accommodations, but because of the long projected legal challenge that is actually delaying that whole process.
And what is the legal challenge? Is it a legal challenge to try and formalize the settlement? Is it a legal challenge to try and find alternative housing for the people here?
The legal challenge that the city has been facing in terms of alternative accommodation is to try and have the inhabitants evicted from this process. They've also got the Department of Home Affairs to come in and do an assessment over here. And one of the challenges that the city has is that majority of the inhabitants here are foreign nationals from Lesotho. So when it comes to formal housing, they will be unable to do that. But in terms of alternative accommodation, I think the city would be in a position to do that.
And just coming to you also, Randall Roxon, just talk to us regarding, as COSDAC, the community of Eldorado Park, do you want the people in Lapland to remain staying in this area? What are the feelings or sentiments from the people of the community?
Thank you. Our organization, COSDAC, launched a complaint with the previous council of Ward 18, Councillor Peter Rafferty, and he got us involved with various stakeholders and government institutions like housing and alike. And then when we didn't get any joy from our meetings that we had with these departments, we launched a complaint with the Human Rights Commission, and as well there weren't any joy for us as well. So we are still waiting on the report backs from the human rights, from the city, and so on. And then what happens is, on your question is, do we want the residents of Lapland to remain here, is that the complaint that we launched was based on the three factors, was based on the health risk, and on the environmental risk, and also on the crime that this place holds for the community of Eldorado Park, which are house breakings and the things being sold here in Lapland. So it became a raven for criminal activities and so on. So, but our case was mainly based on the health risk and on the environmental risk. People cannot live in such humane conditions, and so we raised the issue with different departments of government.
Just for the record, we did invite the MMC of Housing or somebody from that office, and they actually failed to provide a representative. So we would have loved to also hear their voice in this matter. Just to give our viewers a bit of context as well, he's talking about inhumane conditions. People that live here don't have access to water, they don't have access to sanitation. And just sitting here, the smell that the stench that's actually in the air right now is bad for not even just the children only, but even the adults living around in this community. Just coming to you now, Florentia, just talk to us about some of the human rights violations that are actually taking place in this area.
Well, I mean, if one looks at the conditions in this settlement, there's no access to water. There's no access to very basic services such as sanitation. There are children who are living here as well, whether South African or foreign. One needs to consider also the rights of the child and the rights to shelter, to a clean and healthy environment. So there's a number of factors that militate against people being able to live in dignity. So in terms of the issue of the need to find alternative accommodation for this community, I think it's one that is it's something that is critical and that applies to the entire community. At this stage, I've heard the issue around the Department of Home Affairs coming to identify people, but one must take this as an emergency situation that requires intervention for every resident who is staying here.
Now, Faisal, Florentius just mentioned the issue of housing. What else do you think needs to be done for the people living in Lapland?
Well, I think that the first thing that needs to be done is to move the people from Lapland, because the area is not conducive for living. It's right next to a landfill site, and next to that landfill site is a water treatment plant. So I think the main issue is to move them instead of bringing the services in here. It's no use you bring services in here in an area that is not conducive for living.
You know, we do have a live audience here, so I want to take some questions from the audience members. Okay, her question is, where are you from and how can you help us?
Myself, okay, I am the ward councillor in Ward 18, which is just across the street. The boundary between my ward and this ward is actually the Union Road. So what I can do is we can take up the issue and follow up with the MMC of Housing and also with the MMC of Infrastructure to see how we can accommodate, and also to find out how far are the plans in terms of moving them, and also in terms of the court challenge that they're currently facing.
And in terms of the human rights violations, how can people that come from South Africa, from Lesotho, from Botswana, from Zimbabwe be helped?
Well, I mean, I think at this stage, for Lawyers for Human Rights, for us, it's important that everybody's rights are respected. I mean, our constitution does apply to everyone in the Republic. And we are available for advice in terms of what would be even basic procedural steps that would need to be followed, and just make sure that the rights of everyone are respected in line with our constitution.
Now, some people think that because they're not from South Africa, they don't have the certain rights that South African citizens have. So as a foreigner living in South Africa, what rights do I have? Do I have the right to water? Do I have the right to sanitation? Do I have the right to get a house? You know, what are my rights as a foreigner in South Africa?
Well, I mean, remember that our constitution applies to everyone, whether foreign or South African. And there's very basic rights, like the right to dignity, to basic human rights applies to all. Also, we need to be very careful about differentiating. You know, there's very many categories of foreigners in South Africa. And it doesn't mean that because one is a foreigner, one has no rights. There's asylum seekers, there's refugees, there's temporary migrants, there's permanent residents in South Africa, and they all have a number of different rights. So it's important that we do have Lawyers for Human Rights, a very strong refugee and migrant rights program, where we also do a lot of awareness raising and capacity building of communities, of individuals and not just of enabling foreigners to know the rights, but also conscientizing society and government as to the fact that foreigners also have rights, and they're not without rights, and that the Constitution does apply to us all.
And yourself, the lady asked where you're from, you know, who do you represent, and how can you actually help their situation?
Yes, my name is Randall from COSDEC. I'm one of the directors from our organization. It's an NPO. And like I said earlier, the reason for us being involved in this complaint, in this case, is for the city of Johannesburg to come in and make the assessments and also give report backs on what their stance are, what the situation of the people of Lapland, and what their plans are, and what are their way forward on assisting the people with certain kind of help that the people need. As you and I well know, that people cannot stay on a landfill site, people cannot stay next to a sewage dam. It is inhumane. People cannot live in those conditions. So for us, it was the reason why we went to City of Johannesburg and all the stakeholders is to ask for assistance, to see that how they can come in and be an assistance to these people, the residents of Lapland.
And as people that live here, what do you want to see changing? What is it that you actually want?
Okay, my name is Hilton Dawson. I'm the chairperson for Community Service Delivery Committee, COSDEC. I just need to add on what was said. I think it's three issues. The first issue was the health concern, and we had meetings with various departments to come up with a short-term plan on how they can mitigate the health issue, because there's a issue for the resident that is residing here, and there's also an issue for us that's staying right opposite from this place. As you can see, it's not beautiful. If you see the place, it's unconducive. So first thing is, on the health issue, the people are working in this environment, and as well they are staying as well in the same environment. So my first issue is, before we move to the housing, is the environmental issue that we are having, which means this land belongs to the City of Johannesburg, but at the same time it's been given to pick it up for waste management. But at the end, people are residing to make ends, are here to make ends meet. So now it's recycling, but now recycling is illegal. It's not being managed, and pick it up doesn't have a license for the recycling part. So that is an issue that we need to attack and see how we can keep this place, how we can get this place regulated, and also come up with plans on people working here on environmental and health in this place, because a basic human right needs to come first, but we cannot bring the basic human right into this situation. So what is the steps forward for us? Because even lawyers are scared to take on this case.
Well, thank you. Well, the lady before this gentleman spoke mentioned that some of the basic issues that they actually want to have dealt with is the issue of having water, having toilets, and also their children can't go to school. I mean, what can be done? Can some of the children be allowed to attend schools in El Dorado Park, or what sort of way can it be managed?
Well, look, South Africa belongs to all those who live in it, whether you are foreign, like the lawyer stated earlier on. So I think in terms of being a foreign national, if they are documented, I'm sure that they can register their children at any of the schools, whether it be in El Dorado Park or the surrounding areas. In terms of the services such as water and sanitation and so forth, this area is not earmarked for housing. It's not earmarked for a living condition. So that places the city a bit in a catch-22 to place those services here. As I stated earlier on, the challenge here is to move the inhabitants from here to a more livable condition whereby they can provide those type of services to them.
Well, since it's not earmarked for housing, and so you can't really provide proper water services, it's not possible to have a water tanker perhaps coming once a week to have, you know, mobile water services being provided, because people here actually have to go to El Dorado Park and go and ask for water from other people's yards and then come back here and sell it to those that actually live in this place. Can there not be like a tanker sent on a weekly basis?
I'm sure that can be done. I'm sure that can be done, but then what message are you sending to the inhabitants that it's okay to live here? We will provide those services. As I stated earlier on, there's also still a court challenge underway. So those are the catch-22 situations, yeah.
Now, Florence, there was a mention as well about lawyers not wanting to take up this kind of challenge. What do you have to say to that?
I think I'm not sure where that's coming from, but I think there is the urgency of finding an alternative accommodation for this community, given the health risks, the environmental risks, the sanitation risks. whether the city's now imposed a moratorium, I mean, that's something that the city would need to prioritize and deal with this as an emergency situation that needs that attention. The emergency housing, because again, it's issues about basic dignity and an emergency situation. If we think about it, where also children, whether South African or foreign, are involved, they need to find an alternative place for the entire community at this stage, regardless of your status, right? One can then get into more longer term or public housing options for the community, and one can look at which foreigners are here, what they would qualify for. But in the first instance, is about finding an alternative for the entire community that could have at least some kind of a serviced land that could have basic access to water and sanitation to start with. The other thing I wanted to come back to is this issue of education. And we need to remember that children's rights are paramount, right? South Africa, not only through the Constitution and the Children's Act, but we're signatories to a number of international conventions on the rights of the child. Now, a child cannot be denied education because of the absence of documents. So, indeed, that child must first be admitted, be allowed to access a school. And the issue of documentation then must be dealt with between the school and the parents or the caregivers of that child. But the issue of documentation should not be used as an excuse to deny a child access to education. So I think I just wanted to point that out, because there's often a misunderstanding about that.
Now, Randall, you mentioned that you have been trying to get in touch with, the housing department and various institutions. Who do you think is responsible for providing housing to non-South Africans? Because some people feel that it's not the city's responsibility to care for them. Is that true?
I think it should be across the board, provincial, national, and your local government. Where your city of Johannesburg is in your local government. So I think the responsibility is for all those three entities to come together on this issue and map out a plan or a way forward on how they will be doing in making the assessments and finding solutions on either assist the people on their needs, which is an emergency, assisting them on their needs, and also mapping out a plan on the movement of the residents of Lapland to be at, like the councillor said, in a better living space.
Now, Faisal, just coming back to you, is there sufficient allocation in the budget to cater for both South Africans and non-South Africans living in informal settlements such as this one? Is there money to assist them?
The answer is no. Let me just give you a picture of the housing backlog that we currently facing in Johannesburg. We have a 300,000 backlog currently in terms of housing, and that is for South Africans. Now, there are plus minus 170,000 people registered on the waiting list currently. So the budget comes from province and national, and the city does the execution. But the city will always be prepared to build houses, whether it is for foreign nationals, provided province can give them that budget for that. But right now, the city doesn't even have enough for South African citizens to build houses.
Just coming back to the residents, she mentioned that if you want your children to go to school, all you have to do is register yourself, get a permit, and then you can actually get your child access to school. Has the government come to try and help you know how to register yourself as an immigrant officially to be able to get access to these things? Is it easy for you? Have you done it? Now, she's mentioning that she's been here for about 8 years and there's been no sort of assistance or training from the Department of Home Affairs to try and educate them on how to go about applying to be recognized as legal immigrants. What kind of intervention can be done in that regard?
Well, we can always engage the Department of Home Affairs to come out and do that assessment, and even the Department of Education also to come out and see how they can assist.
Right. And also one of the challenges that they sometimes have is that police officers come here, whether SAPS or Metro police officers, they come and they are accused of stealing from the people, stealing whatever produce they actually use to sell. Some of them get harassed by police officers. They get police officers stealing money from them. Is that right? Can they open cases against police officers because they're not citizens of South Africa, not registered? What are the rights that they have?
Oh, absolutely. There's nothing entitles a police officer, whether from the South African Police Services or Metro Police, to act with impunity and to harass any individual. And therefore, that kind of behavior and that kind of conduct must be taken to task. Certainly cases can be opened at a police station, and also those issues could be raised with entities such as IPID to raise issues regarding police conduct or misconduct in this case. So it doesn't, unfortunately, in our society, there are times where police officers wield their power and use it to oppress people. And that's absolutely against our constitution. That is not right. That is behavior that needs to be taken to task. It's just that a lot of times people feel vulnerable in reporting it because they're afraid that they're going to be further victimized. But those issues can be reported, as I said, either opening cases or reporting it also to entities such as the Human Rights Commission and IPID, the international, and the police inspectorate. Yeah.
And just going back to our audience here, there are companies that come and collect the plastics, the wood, the paper that you collect. Do they help you with gloves or masks or some sort of safety equipment to help you when you're doing your work?
Ha ba re fe letho dithuso gona re itshokolla ntho e nngwe le e nngwe o e bonang
ha le rekisa koro ka kra bokae ka letsatsi ha ile plastic or ele pampiri
ke tšhelete e nyane haholo, cause maybe per kilo ke 1 ranta kwa dependa ke ntho e feng ha ke price tse nyane haholo ka se re etsa fela hobane ha ona ntho re ka etsa.
And then tšhelete ne sentse le romelle hae hape la kgona go romela hae
Ha re kgone. That's why o bona re nka bana re batlisang re bona go le betere gore bonyane se re e nyane re nang le yone re ije le bana wa bona go tletse bana fela ka cause ha re kgone go mella hae o ka utlwisisa gona ha e ba ntho ena in 50 ranta kapo let me say 20 ranta kana hae ke tlo ba fa ke ba rekele diaparo ka eng ba ja ba apara ba ya sekolong ha ke kgone. That's why o bona re latile bana cause ga sa faga.
So what she's just mentioning that, you know, when she came to South Africa, she came here looking for job, prospects of a job. She couldn't find work. And this was where she was able to find work by recycling material. And that, you know, they make as little as 1 rand, sometimes per kilo, depending on what you're selling. You might make 50 rands per kilo. So it's not much money per day. So instead of sending the money back home, which they used to do, they've now decided to go home and fetch their children and live with them in this dump because it's cheaper for them to have the child here and share whatever little that they have with their children.
Yeah, look, South Africa is a country that is governed by laws. We are a constitutional democracy. I mean, if businesses come in here and they exploit these people, they must be reported. I mean, there's a Consumer Protection Act. They should report them to such institutions, you know.
You want to add something?
I think one of the things that I think is quite encouraging, because if we look at this community and many communities across our country, there's a number of residents, a lot of people coming from the SADC region. And I think South Africa is finally, we are finally accepting that we live in Southern Africa. We are part of the SADC community. The white paper on international migration that the Department of Home Affairs is putting through the process of adoption recognizes this and recognizes the importance as well of allowing people from SADC to be in South Africa documented so that they don't get exploited, so that if they are going to work here, they are documented, they can contribute in terms of their tax contributions, and then it's much harder for employers to possibly abuse their rights. And I think that's actually very positive, because as we can see, many of the migrants who are here don't necessarily want to stay in South Africa, but they want to support their families at home. And if they were able to do that in a way that is dignified, where their rights are respected, where they don't need to negotiate conditions of employment, and our laws are very clear and respect their rights, then it could be a very positive situation for all of us, because South Africa benefits by the fact that the migrants are also contributing to the economy and to the development. And they're also selling and taking our goods from here back home and selling them. So it's hopefully, as the white paper is fully adopted and implemented, and legislation aligns to the policy that South Africa is pursuing, we might have less opportunity for communities such as these to be exploited and taken for a ride.
Well, it's time now to take a short break. We'll be right back, so do stay tuned.